Hey, welcome back. It's Jonathan. Okay, so in this video, one thing I'm going to be talking about is the David Williams forecasting method for getting our directional bias for the month ahead using aspects of the planets. Now, I teach this in more nitty-gritty detail in the McWhirter forecasting course. So within the McWhirter forecasting course, we take a look at the 18.6-year cycle, or the business cycle. We take a look at forecasting the New York Stock Exchange using the McWhirter method, and then we look at forecasting individual stocks, and we use both McWhirter and Williams methods in that. I give you all the tools, I show you how they work, I go into the details on what we're looking for, etc. However, one thing I have noticed is that some of my most watched videos are more on the forecasting side of stuff, and it clearly is a fact that you guys like to learn about that and you want to watch it. Now, whilst I can't teach you how to actually go about doing the calculations and whatnot for the McWhirter course content, because it takes a lot of time, and I've actually already taught it in that. So if you want to go learn it, you can jump in that and actually learn everything. I'm going to show you how it works. So that way you can either take on your own study, buy the books that talk about this, or join the course. The choice is then yours. I'm going to show you how it works and basically what we do to get it operating. So we're going to do this on Woolworths. Okay, so basically what we need to do is we need to find the date of the aspect. We need to pop in what the transiting planet was, what the aspect made was, and then what the natal planet was. And basically transiting just means, if we look at a zodiac wheel, okay, so if I'm going to pop up a zodiac wheel, I'm going to pop up an ephemeris. If we look and we go forward in time, we can see that, or at least each day, if we go forward in time by minutes, we can see that there are some planets that are moving on this. And we have Mars, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon making the progress, or the most progression throughout the day. And some smaller planets, such as the other ones, are moving ever so slightly. As we go forward in time, these go around the zodiac. Okay, these are our timekeepers. This is what we basically use to track time, and one of the main timekeepers that we use is the sun. As it goes around the zodiac, if it gets to the same point in time in the future, well, that's going to give us basically 1 year in time. Okay, and the other timekeepers are the other planets. What we want to know, though, is we want to know when certain planets are making certain aspects to other planets. And we do that by looking at conjunctions, looking at the sextile, looking at the square or the trine. Now, I like to keep things simple. I don't like to complicate this too much. However, these are the aspects that we're looking for. We want to know when is a planet, for example, conjunct another planet. Conjunction just means that on the longitude side of things, they have the same number. So one of the most easy conjunctions that you see more often than not is the conjunction of the sun and the moon, which would be basically a new moon. And as these two make the same longitude angle, they're basically going to be forming a new moon. So right now, at 4:21 a.m. using a +10 GMT offset, at 4:21 a.m. 9th of April 2024, that is going to be a new moon. That is a conjunction. We also see Mars and Saturn are going to be forming a conjunction. So we have Saturn at 34440, Mars at 34436. If we progress the day ahead, we got 344.41, 344.41 for Mars and Saturn. These two planets are now exactly conjunct. And then as time goes on, days go on, they move away from each other. Okay, so that is one of the aspects. And we just want to know when these timekeepers are making these aspects. And there's different aspects which give us different angles. It gets really complicated if you're using a lot of them. However, these different aspects throughout the month give us different angles, and we basically want to be keeping track of when these aspects occur, because we're going to use that energy from last month to forecast the month ahead. Okay, so that is how you do it. Now, what you would do using a standard ephemeris is grab all these aspects, grab the dates, and you'd basically pop them in here. It's going to give you a point, and then at the bottom of our sheet, it's going to give us a net aspect value, and it's going to tell us if the month ahead is likely to be bullish or bearish. Now, everything that I do regarding this astro-based stuff is always going to be, a tendency or a bias within a level of probability. And for the financial forecasting stuff, I like to maintain a probability of around 70%, which means that if we were to do this for a whole year, we're looking to get around 8 out of 12 months with the correct directional bias. And that's way better than a 50% strike rate, which is basically flipping a coin. This is actually a workable method, but it relies on us having the right transiting planet to the right natal planet. Now, what is a natal planet? If I add on another ring now, and I go ahead and clear up this chart, a natal planet is basically where a setup originated from at a specific point in the past. Now, let's say, for example, we're looking at a planet, so we're looking at a date of birth. Let's say your date of birth is, let's just say you were born in the year 1990, okay? And your date of birth was the 4th of June, and you know on your birth certificate that you were born at 7:42 a.m. with a GMT offset of +10. Well, my friends, that means that you have a natal wheel, which looks like this. This is this inner wheel, okay? The inner wheel is now your natal wheel, okay? And the outer wheel is where where planets are today. So in 1990, this is the inner wheel. This is where everything was. You are considered, if we zoom out, you are considered a Gemini, and the sun was 13 degrees Gemini on your date of birth. And each time the sun gets back to 13 degrees Gemini, you celebrate your birth date, which is what we call a solar return. Okay, so you celebrate your birth date basically at 13 degrees Gemini every single year, or in other words, the 4th of June. Okay, 1990, 4th of June 1991, 4th of June 1992. The sun is back. The sun being the timekeeper. This is what a lot of people don't realize, is that you use astrology, or astronomy, I should say, in a lot of the stuff you do. When you set a timer on your phone, you're going forward 10 minutes in time. Well, the sun is moving a portion of time, because we track time as in 24 hours, because that's the time it takes the Earth to revolve, daylight to daylight sort of thing, day to day. We track time using the sun, okay? You track your birth date using the sun. You track your anniversary, your wedding anniversary, the death of a family member. You track that anniversary using the sun. The sun gets back to a certain point. We track it on a calendar. That calendar is produced using the sun, okay? You cannot live life without that basic knowledge that you use the sun as a timekeeper. However, that timekeeper has been simplified into a calendar, and that calendar has then been broken up into, years, months, days, weeks, and, basically minutes. So keeping that in mind, you should then approach this with an open perspective and know that as the outer planets, which would be, so again, just remind you, the inner planets are your natal wheel. This is where you were born. This is where everything's happening. And the outer planets then move around today, and they make aspects to the inner planets. And those inner planets are the natal planets, which is basically aspecting where it was in the past. So if I turn on, for example, conjunction, and I move time forward, I want this one, I believe. We can see that right now, Uranus and Jupiter, and also the Moon, are making conjunctions, or are about to at least make conjunctions at different times. Venus making conjunction to Mars. We have Jupiter making a conjunction to Mercury. These planets, these outer planets, are making conjunctions to your natal planet, which is just basically a point in the sky at that specific time. And this can have an influence on your personal life. Now, I'm not an astrologer by any means. I'm not an expert at this. However, when it comes to financial astrology, this is what we're incorporating. Okay, so how it impacts your personal life, I couldn't tell you. But when we use this for financial astrology and we're looking how it impacts the markets, that is the next phase, okay? So then we have, for example, the sextile, the square, the trine, the opposition. These are all making aspects different times at different degrees. Now, if we lower the orb period to a 0.5, for example, which the orb period just means like an angle of difference, okay? So when we have 0.5 degrees, it means that, for example, the sun is 179.6 degrees of an opposition, And we know if we're opposite something in a circle, it's 180 degrees. That means it's within 0.5 degrees, okay? So 179.5 to 180.5. That's within 5 degrees. That would be considered a conjunction. Now, when we want to do the spreadsheet, we want the exact conjunction, which means we want 0.00. And then you would be finding the exact minute that something is going to go conjunct. So nothing is conjunct this day. Nothing's conjunct this day. Nothing's conjunct this day. Not that we're seeing pop up on the chart. And we would basically be trying to find out which conjunctions are occurring which day. We're basically using the moon as the most important timekeeper in this instance. Which conjunction, let's keep going, or opposition actually, so let me pop that on. Am I doing my minutes too quickly? Might change it to 0.1 then. If we use software to pinpoint this, we can see when it's actually occurring. So yeah, that was too tight. So I was moving it too fast, so it was too tight. So we're now within basically 0 degrees, we're 0.1 degree away, or in this instance, we actually got a 0 degree conjunction, okay? So the moon is now conjunct the natal moon. We would then pop that information. So we would go the date, the time. This is just for your record keeping. You don't need to do this if you're going to be doing it, if you're not doing any record keeping. Pop in the conjunction. So in this instance, actually for this method, we're not using the moon, but just for this example, we did get a moon conjunction. We would pop in the moon, we would do the aspect, which would be a conjunction, and then we would pop in the moon, and then it would give us our points, what that's worth, and then we would scroll down. Anyway, so we want to simplify this, and we can just use any solution we want. We can, in this instance, we can use a program called Timing Solutions, but any other solution you have, whether it's doing it manually or using Optima or any other software, find what works for you. With Timing Solutions, I'm able to basically just print it out and get that information. So we basically have all the planets we're using. We have the aspect that we want, and we're doing it to the natal planets. Okay, so now we need to find our natal date. Let's do this on a stock. Let's try Woolworths. I'll do it in Australia. To get our natal date, we basically just want to find that first trade date. That means that it's the first day that this market went live, or we find the IPO date as well. If we don't have the IPO, then we find the first trade date. And we went live basically at 10 a.m., 12th of July, 1993. So we take this date, we take 12th of July, 1993. We go into our natal wheel, 1993, and we move this to July, and then we want the 12th. Okay, so now we got the year and the time, the date, sorry. And then we want to do, the market opens at 10 a.m. So we'll do 10 a.m. And then we want to change the location, okay? Now the location of this is Sydney, Australia, because that is the exchange that Woolworths is traded on. So we have now the location, Sydney, Australia, and we click Save, or at least click OK. We now recalculate our ephemeris. We're now going to go in here, and because this is doing it to the natal chart, we're going to calculate this. It's then going to populate everything. All we do now is we want to just save this, okay? I'm going to make it compatible for the spreadsheet that we're using. I want to save it as a text file. Let's save it to the desktop to wow.txt. All right, now we're going to open that text file up, and we're going to begin working on it. So let's just zoom out of this, go wow.txt. And this is basically what we're using now. So we got it from 2024 out to 2025. I actually want to get some more data. So I'm going to make a quick change here. We're going to do it from 2022 in January 1st, 2022. It's just going to recalculate now that ephemeris. Okie dokie. We're going to recalculate this. So 1 second. These are just, small mistakes we make. Okay, I'll just close down this one as well. changing it to a format that's readable by the spreadsheet. Now going to save it as a report again. So, wow, done, close, open this one back up. So now we got it from 2022. Basically, this is when all the aspects made an exact conjunction, opposition, etc. Based on the degrees. So you just need to convert the degrees to what they actually mean. If you're not using something like this, like Timing Solutions or any other software that can just print it out in this instance. Okay, let's begin. So now we've got our natal information and we have the stock that we want to start forecasting on. We're going to do this now and just show you how it works. So this is going to give us a monthly bias for the month ahead. We're going to use all the aspects that occurred in the month before. So for example, if we want to be forecasting February, we use all the aspects from the month before, which is going to be January, and we're going to get a bullish or bearish bias tendency for the month ahead. And we're going to take a look at some of the nuances of this as well, because there are ways that you can use this to gauge the bigger picture. Maybe I don't have time to explain it in this video here. Maybe we'll just do a black and white layout and just find the directional bias, at least that way. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to copy now the 6th to the 28th of the 1st, 2022. We're going to pull up our chart. This is 2022 here. So this is January. So we're going to get a rectangle. So this is the month that just went past, this period right here. Now we want to forecast the month ahead. I want to do date region, sorry. Now we want to forecast basically the 1st of February until the 20th of February. And all we don't want to know what each day is doing, okay? We want to get a monthly bias and we want to know if it's going to be up, down, sideways, and we want to know what the tendency of that month is going to be, okay? So based on where it started to where it ended, ideally we have a bullish bias, but again, we're looking for the accuracy of around 70%, and we would take action as required. So all we do now is we head over to the spreadsheet. I'm going to take this data that was given to me by Timing Solutions and now convert it to a bit of data that I can just pop straight into my spreadsheet. Okay, so I can just, this is good for when I want to backtest quickly. Okay, so we have a negative aspect of 33, which has given us a sell bias. And we know that it was a it ended bullish, so the bias was correct until around the 21st of Feb. 21st of Feb, we had basically a week up, and that basically invalidated our bias, and it was up 3.7%, which is out of our average of 2% range. So if it lies within 2%, we consider the bias, depending on what happened during the month, to be correct. Let's just say it spent most of its month down and then blasted higher last day of the trading month, for example. We would still consider that to be a correct bias. Most of our month was down. So within 2% is what we would have for our leeway. So I'm just going to mark this one red as incorrect. Sorry, wrong one. That was incorrect bias. Now we move on to February. So we want to use the aspects that occurred during February to now forecast March. So we take this. Again, you can just do all this manually. In the spreadsheet, I show you how we calculate all these aspects. And you can then just learn the nitty-gritty of it. Okay, so we're going to now just delete all this. We're going to pop this in. We're going to scroll down. We have a buy bias. So now we're going to take our date. The starting date was here, and the ending was up here. So we had a buy bias, and that was correct. Okay, now we're going to use the aspects that occurred in March to forecast April. Now there are some nuances in this, and I sort of show you those in the program on what to do when the bias is wrong and what to do when your bias is wrong multiple months in a time, because there are extra ways that we want to be analyzing the market. Okay, if we for example have the market moving higher during a sell bias, and it does it for a certain amount of time, then we could be expecting a large pullback in the market likely to come soon. So in this instance, we had a sell bias. The market did shoot higher, 3% again, so it is invalid. Okay, so we had a lot of negativity from this month rolled into the next month, the market did push higher until the 21st, which is actually a repeat, which I've shown you in the past, how to use these timing cycle repeats before falling lower, coming into our range of 2%, but then having basically a one-day push higher into the end of the month. Let's take a look at May now. So again, very easy to use May. Now, the reason why I'm going to do this over a long period of time is because a lot of people got angry that I didn't do enough back testing, or at least, I guess you could say, appropriate back testing in the last video. And you thought that perhaps it was not a good strategy, or that it was bogus and could have possibly been faked. So we're just going to do this together. If you drop off, you drop off. We've got a buy bias. Okay, this is good actually. So from here to here, we had a buy bias, which is incorrect. So at the moment, we now have a coin toss of correct and incorrect, with roughly a 70% invalid sequence. So we had one right here, two wrong here. So the sell bias is still strong. However, yep, so the sell bias in here would have been a buy bias. We would have been looking for longs, okay? The market fell lower. We would have been looking for entries to go long. There was no entries to go long. Okay, so let's go back here. We use the data for May to forecast June. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and copy this in now. Alrighty. Sell bias for this month. And we had a sell bias correct until around, it's within 1.2%. So we had a sell bias until around the 21st again, well, the 17th, and then a weekend. So the 21st is what activated it. And this would be forming part of your, basically your forecasting method, where you're looking for these, where the biases are going incorrect in the month, and then making the judgment based on that. This is technically correct because it ended within 2% from where it started. Just make sure, 1.9%. So we would have technically had a sell bias validity. Alrighty. And now we're going to do July using the aspects that occurred in June. We'll just change this. I know. Watching something like this is boring and you're tempted to drop away. If you want to just get the outcome, just go to the end of the video. We're at a sell bias now. Now, we'll just see what happens if we get multiple sell biases in a row. You'll see the nuance here. So this one will be invalid. Ended 4% higher. Let's keep moving on. Sell bias again. So we had two sell biases in a row, and this is one of the nuances that I wanted to provide you. If you are getting multiple sell biases in a row, and then the market advances during that sell bias, it generally signals that a large rollover is coming up very soon, and that the market is actually moving higher than where it should be, okay? It moved into the 21st again, and the 21st activated that downward drop. Again, these are the timing stuff that no one's going to be teaching you, but you just see right here, that same date is activating basically every single one of our biases, whether it's invalidating them or validating them. Alrighty, so let's move on. We want to know what's possibly going to happen in September, so we look at this one. Take our August data. So we're now in a selling pressure right now. and we've gotten a buy trigger. Alrighty, this one is invalid. The 26th was the low before it pushed higher. The 21st didn't do anything. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sequences. This one here was invalid as the market overshot. The sell bias came into effect. Sell bias looks like it's lasted for 2 more months. This buy bias didn't work. If we get another buy bias here, I would generally be looking for a entry signal, as a lot of the market is then shooting down during buy biases and then providing us, I'll be looking for a bottoming signal if that was to occur. And up here as we get sell bias, but the market is pushing higher. Again, this is the nuances of this. Then I'd be looking for a short signal because the market is likely to roll over. That is, yeah, you can only sort of gauge those sort of behaviors by backtesting this method. So whilst we're getting an idea on the month ahead, what do you do when the market doesn't do what you're expecting it to do? Okay, that is the next thing, and that's how you can only learn that by backtesting this method and developing a strategy around it. Okay, so now we have a sell bias. Okay, so this period here, sell bias. Be good if we get a buy bias now near the bottom. That would be ideal. I think we've had some bad luck this year with our forecasting. However, we do it long enough, we get a large enough sample size, we'll be able to prove or deny. Now again, it comes down to the natal date. What you want to do is you want to test the natal date of, and this is part of the backtesting theory, you want to test the natal date for the IPO, and you want to test the natal date also for the first trade date, because one of them is going to be providing you a better outcome, okay? It's 4.4%, that is invalid. Gave us a sell bias at the bottom. Yeah, sell bias. All right, now we want the 11th. Take this data, chuck it in. And sell bias again. I'm getting a lot of selling pressure at the moment. Going to change this to red. And now this is strong bullish movement. So we'll see if the aspects agree or not. Straight after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to then move over to try and find the IPO date, and we'll continue the backtesting with the IPO date because we want to know which one is working. Okay, and then we also want to find other natal dates, such as if there's a stock split or a merger of a company, they can actually recreate the vibration in the company. Okay, so sell bias again. Okay, so I would say let's go ahead and mark this one off as invalid. All right, so what I'm going to do now is what have we got? What's our percentage? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we've got a year here. Correct ones were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them were correct. So basically 5 of 12 were correct. Uh, 40% were correct, okay? So let's go ahead and see if we can optimize this now, and I'm going to go locate that natal date. Okay, so we're back again. Now, like I said in the last part of this video, we need to find the right natal date to get the best accurate or the most probable forecast for that company. So I just asked AI on the side here. I said, in astrology, especially financial astrology, what is the natal chart for corporations? Now, there are 2 ways to go about this. First one is to use the IPO date. That is the date of the IPO where the actual company has come out and said we're going to launch this. The second is the first trade date. Okay, so that is what we got off Optima, where we looked at the first date where the market traded, and in this case it was in July. The next one is actually you could use it for a natal chart, which would be like a specific event. Let's say, for example, Woolworths did a stock split, or they did a merger with another company, or even they got a new CEO of the company. Those are all technically birth dates of the company, or what we could use for a natal chart for the company, because the company is starting something new. Okay, so we could use that as a date for what we want to backtest on. Now, what I did just for this remainder of this one, because we don't have much data left, we've actually only got around 12 months of data left. So we're going to do the next 12 months out. So the first one we did was the first trade date. We had a hit and miss set up with that one, where we had about a 40% accuracy rate. The next one we're going to do is the 19th of May 1993, which was the chairman, Paul Simmons, announced that shares in the business would be offered to the public in Australia's largest ever share float. The company was relisted on the stock exchange over the following month, and 19,000 Woolworths shares were basically added. So on 19th of May 1993, Paul Simmons announced that the shares in the business would be offered to the public. Now, I'm using this day here as basically the natal date for the company. Not the first trade date, but the natal date for what we're going to be doing this on. And we're going to be just backtesting the next 12 months, or the following 12 months from 2023 into 2024, just to see what form of accuracy we can get from using this date. Now, if we find any form of accuracy, we might then want to go back and do like 1992, we might want to do, 1993, 1994, 1995, etc., and just test that natal date moving forward, okay? And just make sure that we maintain at least the accuracy or hit rate of with anything we want above 50%. We want a strategy that works more than 50% of the time. Ideally, with financial astrology, we try to get that 70 to 75%, which is what I like to see. That's going to give us roughly 8 out of 12 months of correct bias, and then we use our nuances. So, birth of a corporation, the foundation of any natal chart is the precise moment of birth. For corporations, this can be complex. Typically noon, 12 p.m. is used as a default time for corporations. Actually, I used the 10 o'clock time, but since we're not focusing more so on the moon, it's okay. So, and then key planetary placements in a corporation's natal chart. Each planet plays a pivotal role, defining the company's essence, strength, challenges, and potential trajectory. Actually, that's more of the corporation financial astrology stuff. We can talk about that in the future, but for now, we'll just take a look at the birth of a corporation. Not so much the birth of Woolworths, because Woolworths, I can't recall, is it over 100 years? I'm not quite sure. But in this instance, birth of the idea of making the company public, which was done by Paul Simmons back in 19th of May 1993. So that is the date that we're going to be looking at for this. Now, you could go through, I guess, if we go to our history, there might be a bunch of different dates. I'm not sure. I haven't clicked here. We could go through this and use basically all these dates to find the one that is the most significant. And as time goes on, we could also use these dates in the future to see which one is now providing us the most accurate, okay? There's lots of things we want to be looking at, basically the birth of the company. We want to be looking at the birth of an IPO, or the birth of an idea of an IPO. And then we also want to be looking at any changes to the company structure, whether it's mergers or demergers. And also we could probably be looking at new CEOs. Basically, if we can't find out what's working, we just need to be looking at something else. So I have, until we find one that works, okay, there will be one that works. It will give you that 70%. So right now we're going to be looking at this one and continue on. So I already downloaded the data. I called it just Wow2 basically. And I just used the natal date, which was basically 19th of May. And I actually did 10 a.m., which I probably should have done 12, but because we don't know the exact time and we're not focusing on the moon, so to speak, the exact time might not actually be important. So now we're going to go through and do 2023. So to do 2023, if we move back to Optima, to do January, we need to know what happened. We need to know the planetary aspects that occurred in December of 2022, okay? So in December 2022, we're going to start off this. Now again, if you're bored, just fast forward it and put it on 2 times, okay? Get the lessons at a faster rate. However, if you really want to learn this, then you should just spend the time just listening and watching, because there's a reason to everything I do, and it's because this is the reality of trading and backtesting. You have to do this, okay? So we got a sell bias for January. So this is using our new date. Okay, so the January sell bias, we can see straight away was invalid. The market did only sell for about 6 days before advancing higher. Okay, so that is an invalid sell bias. So if you were looking for shorts in the market, you would have basically just had been looking for those short entries. That's the kind of way you think about it. Okay. Okay, let's to do February, we need to look at January. Okay, so paste this in. And then we get all this and paste it into this one. I created this dual spreadsheet because of those who use timing solutions. Otherwise, as I say, you just pop in the date for your records and pop in the aspect, okay? So buy bias would have been for February. So we'd be looking for longs during February. The market did move higher during that time. There are going to be some nuances. We'll see how to interpret the data as we go. For example, I always keep saying, like, if we get multiple hits of a bearish signal, like it just says bear, 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 but the market's moving higher and higher, higher and higher, it's generally moving outside of the influence of the planets and generally on something else like speculation or some unnecessary buy demand, and then it can generally lead to a sharp sell-off. So this is why I think that this is an important tool to add to your arsenal, because if you're getting 3 months of bearish signals but the market is storming higher, it generally signals that the top is basically almost in, if not in. So then we had February aspects to March. We can see that the bias was down until around the 16th of March. If we use our price measure tool, the market ended up, where's the end of March? The market ended up 3.4% out of our 2% leeway. So this would actually be invalid. If the market had basically not crossed this top here, we would have suggested that the bearish bias or the bearish tendency would have been valid for most of the month. So this was a bear call and the market was running higher. Okay, keep that in mind. Now we want to do April. Is that correct? We want to do, we want to do March for April. March. Alrighty, so spreadsheet, paste this data in. Grab all this. Tedious, I know. This is what you do to learn. Okay, now we got another sell bias. We actually have 2 sell signals in a row, which means there's 2 consecutive months where the market is pushing higher. It's 31 days in that month, so definitely wrong. Pushing higher, but we're getting a sell signal. So now we'd be looking for a topping pattern to occur, okay? That would be the sort of thinking that you'd have, okay? The aspects are saying sell, the aspects are saying sell. Now we're looking for a potential top, okay? So the top came in April. The market opened up down here, closed here. Is it within our 2%? It's basically at 2%, so we would validate that as closing. So it's having that bearish tendency. Yes, it did skyrocket higher, maybe up 4.5%, but then the market reversed. Okay, and that's interpreting the data. It's like an Elliott wave theory or Wyckoff theory. You know, there's ways to interpret it. Okay. Yes, the market is invalid by technically moving higher. But what does that actually mean, and how do we interpret that? Okay, you're only going to get that bias or that sort of understanding of how to interpret it if you do the back testing and you build different scenarios. So we have a buy bias now. So from 1st of May till the end of the month, we were looking for the market to push higher. However, the market basically traded sideways until the 15th. And it ended down 3.5%, so we are invalidated right here. Okay, so this bearish call kept running through. We're now getting a buy call here. So now we'll just see what the next month calls. If the next month calls a buy, so again, we got to use May's data to forecast June. So we take May and just the usual, replace the data. And we have a sell bias. This one was clearly invalidated. End of the month. So sell, sell, buy, sell. So we have invalidating data right here, but we're moving into a market top, which we know from past. We have to be able to, again, interpret this data. I got to mark that one as red, by the way, because it was clearly invalid. Let me do it now before we move. Okay, so to start the year, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total, and we got 2 right, which is giving us maybe like a 40% hit rate at the moment. Now we got to just keep going. Okay, don't be discouraged because the markets can move in and out of this. We're looking for ideally 70%. Okay, paste this in. Sell bias. So now we've been issued 2 sell biases. Now we can always go into the future, remember. You can get all this information into the future. You can build out the biases into the future. You could say, you could put on your chart, this month sell bias, this month sell bias, this month buy bias, this month sell bias. And then you could see it stack up. Okay, if you get sell, sell, okay, there's a buy here, then sell, sell, sell. Then it's telling you that the market is likely to top out. Okay, we might not get the month right every single time. This is why we're using the bigger picture. Okay, so the market has now pushed down. Now we'll just see if we keep getting sells or if buys start to come in now. All right, buy bias. This is actually an interesting one because the market started here, right? And the market ended here. We had a sell tendency for the most of the month. But then on the 22nd of August, the market shot higher and basically gave us that buy bias. It was only 1 day later that we left that buy bias. However, if it's within our 2% range, we consider it a valid month. Okay? Valid just meaning that we basically ended the month sideways. It wasn't incorrect or correct, but we are validating it because we were able to move back into that and provide that buy bias. Again, this is the interpretation of the data. Not every single month you're going to be able to get that entry based on that. You might have had it like possibly drawn a trend line down here on the daily basis, and then you would have had that basically 1 day break. I guess it's not the strongest trend line because I don't teach trend line as that. Go back to some of my last videos. I've done trend line sort of tutorials. I don't day trade with trend lines like that, so that was a bad example. Whatever you do, you might do something yourself. You might have found another pattern. Alrighty, so the next one, let's continue. There we go, sell bias. Alrighty. There we go, so sell bias now. Clearly, this one was spot on. We got to do September's aspects to get October. So let's go ahead. All right, we have a sell bias. Date region, 2nd of October to 31st. That was valid again. It looks like we're coming towards the bottom, so let's see if these aspects can provide us any clue. So we'll do October. Now again, to get the November forecast, we want to copy the aspects that occurred in October. The way you think about it is like this, okay? With financial astrology, all these aspects are going to have an effect on the market, okay? So during this month of October, these aspects occurred, and they are consider these aspects as energy, used energy, okay? So these aspects came into effect on each day. These aspects came into effect and they used up energy. And now after that energy was used, whether it was positive energy or negative energy, that energy was used up, and now it's exhausted into the next month, which means that there's a new round of energy, but this energy is being used up. So whatever was working in the market in this month has been used, and that's why we use that energy to forecast the next month, okay? Because that energy is no longer there, okay? It's already been used. There will be new energy in the next month which influences the moves, but then we use that used energy, exhausted energy, to then forecast the next month, okay? Anyway, I know that I tried to explain that as simply as I could, despite it being quite confusing or esoteric perhaps. It's just one way that I try to think about it, and perhaps could help you understand what's going on. Because, for example, on the 1st of October, we have energy being used, okay? So the 1st of October being a weekend, there's energy, and that energy is either going to be positive or negative, and it's going to make an influence on the market. On the 7th of October, we have 2 rounds of energy occurring here. So the 7th, again, is a weekend. 2 rounds of energy occurring here, and it's either going to provide a negative or positive influence on the market when it opens up on the 9th. And then, for example, we got anything else? The 21st, the 22nd, 21, 22, 23, we have energy that's coming into effect. So 20, that's occurring basically this period here over the weekend. This energy is coming into effect and it's being used up. Okay, just, another topic, but try to think of it that way. So then we have a sell bias. So we're selling in November. Okay. And now we can see that the market's clearly higher. Okay, so we want to find what the exhausted energy is in November to see what was the likelihood of the market being bullish or bearish in January. So let's go ahead and paste this in. Now, just to remind you, I do teach you all this sort of stuff and give you the tools inside. This is a buy bias. The negative energy is -8. So that the energy that was consumed is -8. And now we're doing the opposite of what's being used. Does that make sense? So the aspect value or the negativity value was -8. And now we're looking for positive because the energy has exerted itself. So we've got positivity there running out to the end of that month. And the market's clearly down, so let's see if the energy is also validating that. So we used December to forecast January. All right. Now, for those of you who are in the McWhirter course, just use this as a bonus lesson, okay? I know this is going to be public, but use this as a bonus lesson in the material, okay? So we have sell energy. So energy that was exhausted, which was pushing the market higher during December, is now used up, okay? And now there's negative energies coming in. That's why sometimes you can have basically a sell signal that is possibly strong or weak. We're not too sure because I didn't check it back here. Strong or weak, so this would have been a sell signal, but then it could have been positive energy that was pushing the market higher, okay? And then we exert that energy and then we get the sell signal. That's why I like to keep an open mind and basically set a set of rules or guidelines to follow to actually get this working. A lot of people would just go, oh, I got 2 wrong months in a row, this doesn't work. It's good if you just back test it, change the dates, change the natal dates to find a working model that works for that particular stock that you're using. Now, of course, the stock could have a stock split or a merger in the future, which might change the effectiveness and you might need a new natal date. That then goes back to the back testing. But until that is the case, So the aspect value was 18, so positive energy. So any positive energy that occurred pushing the market up in January has now been exerted. And yes, the market was sell, but anything that was pushing this market higher or giving it any positivity has now been exerted or used. And we have a sell bias for February, okay? And then we would just repeat that into March. So let's do a future one. This is just a forecast, okay? It's not going to provide you a genuine buy or sell signal. This is just a forecast for educational purposes. So now we're going to see what energy was used in this month to forecast potential reversal or whatnot in March, okay? So the February energy is going to provide us a possible sell bias again for March. Okay, so we'll see if the market reverses or whatnot then, but possibly selling March. We'll see how we go. Okay, so that gives us, we got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 months. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, well, we do the positive ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them were correct. So 10 over 14, I believe that's the right calculation. That's given us a 71.5% hit rate of accuracy, and that lies within my 70 to 75% range. This is what I like to see. So using the announcement of the IPO date is something that I would consider using for Woolworths moving forward until it proves not beneficial. However, so far it's provided us good keys and good insights into this. So again, just to remind you, if you want to learn this, you can just join the Louise McWhirter forecasting course. I teach you all these methods. Second one is, obviously you got to backtest, okay? Nothing is going to be working on the first thing. So you're going to be looking at the IPO date, the announcement of the IPO date, the actual first listing date, any mergers or splits that occurred, and you're going to be just backtesting different ranges of them to see if you can get any improvement in the accuracy, okay? That's what I want. Once you've got a strategy, and you might pick random years, okay? You might do 2018 to 2019, and then you might do 2015 to 2016, and you're going to see if any of these can give you an accuracy of around 70%. Ideally 70%. You want to be picking at least 8 out of 12 months a year, the bias. You want to get the bias right 8 out of 12 months a year. And that's going to give you a good directional bias moving forward. If you want to learn the McWhirter theory method, which includes our lunation forecasting and the solar ingress forecasting, among others, especially the corporate natal chart forecasting, they're inside the Louise McWhirter forecasting course. So this is an update for those who didn't think that I gave a good example the first time, which I believe I didn't because I was busy but wanted to put something out. This is going to be, I guess, a longer, more in-depth video on this. And unfortunately, I can't teach it because people have paid. However, if you go in, I'm sure you can do some back testing to work out how all this works. That's all I got, and I'll talk to you soon.